Hey Chris, did you know that
Mhm.
Epic Games announced a Fortnite movie trilogy starring Tom Cruise?
I did not. Please tell me that's a joke. Please, please, please. With Tom Cruise?
Two brothers play a game. Two brothers play a game. Two brothers play a game. Then they will rate that game.
Is it Mission Jack Reacher Fortnite? I mean, what? It's
Welcome
Tom
to Two
Cruise.
Brothers Play a Game. I'm Josh.
I'm Chris.
This
Not
is a
Tom
po-
Cruise. That's,
and no, nope, not
that's
Tom Cruise.
no.
We'll get back to Tom in just a second. This is a podcast where we, two brothers, play a game we found on sale for the Nintendo Switch. We do some fun segments in the front half of the podcast, possibly featuring Tom Cruise, and then discuss and review the game of the month in the back half of the show. This month we're talking about Card Shark. But back to Tom. So
Really? Tom?
yeah, back to good old Tom Cruise and the
Uh-huh.
Fortnite movie trilogy that has just been announced by Epic Games. Do you believe it?
I, d- I do not, but there has been stranger things that have happened in movies, I feel like. So, like who would have thought that Chris Pratt would voice Mario?
Yeah,
Frankly,
that would have been
and
one
do a
that
good
I'd be
job.
like,
So,
nah, and that
yeah,
one is real. Uh,
yeah.
in fact, that is not true. Uh,
Okay.
uh, Chris,
Thank
you had
goodness.
suggested doing something fun with AI for one of our segments, and so
Yes, I did.
and so
Was that an AI idea?
I plugged into ChatGPT, the everyone's favorite AI platform, to
Mhm.
generate fake gaming news headlines for me. It's potentially fake. AI does have a little tendency
Definitely.
to come up with stuff on its own when even not
Mhm,
prompted.
mhm.
But this time, I encouraged it to embrace the fake news, and
Okay.
that is one of the headlines. And honestly, I might watch at least the first movie of the Tom Cruise Fortnite movie trilogy. I think that could be pretty good. Little Mission Impossible dropping in on Tomato Town
There's
and
there's like
going
seven
crazy.
Mission Impossibles now. I think they're going to eight total. So
Yes,
could this Fortnite trilogy become eight? I don't know. An octa trilogy? Is that
I'm very much
a
picturing kind of
trilogy?
a John Wick type idea of Tom Cruise
Uh-huh.
dropping in, getting a gun, going crazy, and then we've got Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt, Mission Impossible going crazy, and then he really could in Fortnite where you can run into Spider-Man and Darth Vader and all them. Why can't you just run into John Wick and have a little duel?
But the way that he does his own stunts, he would actually voluntarily drop in somewhere and immediately start building something that would like no special effects. Just he has to like parachute in onto this thing and then like pull out the hammer in like the shop and like grab
Yeah,
wood and yeah.
that
I
would
mean,
be a great gag. They could have from Parks and Recreation, the guy, the build your own canoe guy. Shoot, what is his name?
oh, I'm even Ron.
Ron Swanson, played by
Ron
Nick
Swanson, but
Offerman.
he's an actor.
But yeah, Nick
Yeah,
Offerman could show up just building in Fortnite while bullets are firing all around him. That would be
but he
very
has to be
funny.
Ron Swanson, and he has to actually like explain everything. As we were gonna want your canoe to be nice and smooth, so that the gun turret can fit on it.
It's
Anyway,
I feel like Nick Offerman and Ron Swanson both might explain things that way. So maybe it's just never explained. Is that Nick Offerman or Ron Swanson in the
I
movie?
have wondered because Nick Offerman actually has a like home show now. I think with
Uh-huh.
Amy Poehler. I think they do
They
like
do
a
a
little bit of
contest. I
building or
watched a
something.
little bit about it. It's
That's
very
what it is.
very
Okay.
entertaining. It's a crafting competition where they give people challenges and mixed media, and you have to use whatever your crafting technique is to make this whatever idea they have, and they just kind of
So
set them loose.
it just needs to be a canoe. That's what you're saying. So yeah,
It could be a canoe. Could be. Some of them might make it out of felt, others out of paper, others out of wood, others
Yeah.
out of metal.
Okay.
It'd be very entertaining. Okay, but back to the AI
Yeah.
thing. So for a moment, I have 5 headlines, and we're going to play a little game where we treat this as actually real, and that we are
Oh,
game
okay.
commentators,
This is different
news
from my other games.
commentators, and just
Like
see where it
reviewers or
goes.
just yeah?
Yeah, just people commenting on the games industry, but with these headlines that are indeed fake. However, we will treat them as if they are real. So get your best newscaster or podcaster voice going. I suppose we always have our best podcaster voices going,
Yeah.
but best newsy podcast voice going, and we'll go ahead and get started. This just in, Chris. Rumor
Hmm.
rumor is that Sony and Microsoft are joining forces to create a super console. What do you think of that?
Well, a super console is better than no console, but the the super console together, will it play all the games that exist in the world? That's my question.
I don't think it will because Nintendo isn't anywhere here. I think this is Sony and
Mm.
Microsoft joining forces to try to take on Nintendo. Maybe they will finally go mobile. Sony has dabbled here and there, but with Microsoft at their side, the two super console creators might finally be able to give Nintendo a run for their money.
But the question that every gamer is going to ask is, will it have a disk drive?
And will it play my old versions of games?
Yes.
The answer is probably no. Sorry about that.
Mm.
In other stories, researchers have created a video game that lets you play as your pet. Isn't that fun?
Now, the real question is, do you actually like become the pet? Do you see things as a pet sees at that level? Do you have like a tongue that sticks out like a dog? Do if you're
I
really
would
gonna play as your pet,
I would assume so that if your pet can blep, then so can you. But honestly, I think this is a fantastic idea that they wish that the video game makers had gotten to sooner. Wouldn't it be nice just to play as your pet, assuming your pet is interesting? I,
and will you miss yourself when you're gone at work?
I would assume so. That might be a large portion of this game is just being, oh, nothing to do.
Going to the window and checking on something, and then going
And
back and
getting suddenly excited only to realize that that was a car driving by.
Mhm.
In other news, Chris, the PlayStation 6 is scheduled to include
What is a
built-in
six? Okay.
time travel feature. That is
Ah.
correct. Sony has discovered time travel, and they're using it to move consoles now.
Ah, well, I'm sure that the time travel is only in the way that you can finally play PS1 games on the PS6.
I'm
That's
just confirming that
by
no,
way of
indeed,
time travel.
PlayStation 6 is not backwards compatible. They do have time
Oh,
travel. You
no.
can go back in time to when you still had your PlayStation and play those games, but you cannot play them on the PlayStation 6. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Still, you can't. That's, yeah.
They will sell them to you again on the PlayStation 6. They will
You
sell,
go.
somebody will go back in
But you still
time
have to
to
use a time
get the
travel.
disc.
Yeah.
Yes.
They will
And
start to resell them
yeah, they aren't
so that you can
reselling
take them
you
back in
new
time.
copies of your old games. They are, in fact, going back in
Yes.
time to get your old games to sell them to you. Ah,
Hmm.
clever.
And that's how
Uh,
GameStop is still staying in business. That's actually.
yes, they have been out of business for 18 years now. However, with this new time travel feature, they are back in business.
And you can buy stock in
And yeah, and now's a great time to buy stock because you can go back in time.
it.
Uh, Not quite finally, penultimately, the Nintendo Switch has been discovered to secretly double as a portable microwave. What do you think about this, Chris?
Hmm. I actually want that to happen. That actually is
It is happening.
the most wonderful thing.
Now, see, I always know when you're playing a game on your iPhone or something, it starts getting really hot, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And or on a laptop. I guess Nintendo Switch just saw that and thought it was a feature instead. And
Let's go
instead of
for
just
it.
getting hot itself, it's just going to get everything around it really hot. Uh,
So don't put it against your leg. That's what you're saying. And
exactly. Yeah, really, just don't have
because
it near your body because that probably will kill you slowly.
yes.
Um, might want to use
But
that
honestly,
dock
I could
mode.
go like there's many times where like I guess you do carry it into the kitchen and make a snack, but why not forego the getting up from your couch at all and make a snack on the game console itself? Why not?
I mean that would be super convenient. You made yourself dinner, but then you got caught up playing your game, and all of a sudden your dinner's cold. Not a problem anymore.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Get
All
some
right.
heated milk, cocoa. I don't know.
And finally, tonight, one last headline. Virtual reality game now allows player to control real world weather. What do you have to say about that, Chris?
It's about time because then you actually know the accuracy of the weather report finally.
Well,
That's
I suppose so, until somebody else starts playing the game and changes it.
and on our news show, we are no longer going to our weatherman, Mark Markerberg, because we now have this virtual reality headset
Yes, yes,
instead.
we now
So
need to go to Twitch to see what the weather is going to be. We'll have our man on the computer watching Twitch streams.
which
Honestly,
is starting off with like or subscribe, and then you will know what the clouds will bring. That's
honestly, this terrifies me because I remember playing SimCity and how many tornadoes I just threw
oh
out
yeah,
because I was bored.
yeah. It's just a
Eh,
tornado.
Oh yeah, it's just a
People have
tornado,
basements.
and then it's just a giant
Yeah.
lizard, and then it turns
The
out that
alien.
Godzilla is actually a weather pattern,
Yeah,
and that's gonna get messy real fast, I think. But
a
should
little
be
bit.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, the accuracy. Why not? You know it. You know
First,
what's coming. Yeah.
first microtransactions were destroying the video game world, and now video games are destroying the real world.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps this will be a fun segment we return to in the future, but it is time to return to reality where these fake gaming headlines are sadly not real. I honestly think there is
Hmm.
something in that creating a video game that lets you play as your pet. I bet that would be very popular. People love their pets.
Yeah, it's probably not all that different from some other pet game or like animal games in general. That one was the most believable, but because I feel like technology now, like it could actually take a picture of your pet and then superimpose something over just um, a mesh in the game, a 3D mesh in the game.
Right, and
I don't
then you
know.
just go around, have a little adventure with your favorite pet.
Yeah,
And then your
yeah.
pet gets to watch you and get really confused on what in the world is going on.
It probably does that often anyway. I mean, I wonder what pets are thinking through, and yeah, yeah.
So let's pivot to talking about the game of the month, Card
Ooh.
Shark. You wanna take a
Card
crack
Shark.
at trying to describe Card Shark?
Yeah. Actually, this is a game I feel like I could somewhat talk about. So you are a mute, like peasant servant guy that gets apprenticed to a hustler that teaches you the fine ways of hustling through card games and card tricks. And you actually get to learn. When I say learn, it's learning in the game, of course, like which buttons to press and that kind of thing. But you do get to play poker, sort of hustle your way through poker and other card tricks and games and stuff. So
Yeah, you never
yeah,
actually play cards in this Card Shark game. You play
no,
you do the cons related to it, and often you're trying to benefit your mentor or your benefactor, the Comte de Saint Germain, and you
yeah.
are Eugene,
Well,
who
well
was
said.
working in a
Yeah,
tavern when the Comte showed up and took him out as a mentee in the art of the con. Also, you're not just trying to trick people out of their money. You're also trying to kind of use these wins to climb the social ladder in this game set in 18th century France, and that was kind of interesting. Where You kind of start off. I actually did manage to
Mhm.
finish this game, and
Oh.
you kind of start off playing simple tables, maybe against merchants and other sorts of things, until eventually you find
Mhm.
yourselves in the fine salons of the nobility in France, and working your way up to play against even more and more wealthy people. Did you have fun playing it? Especially, did you enjoy the presentation of the game?
I did the like presentation wise kind of surprised me because I remember looking at the images of it initially and thinking like, oh, this is going to be really cartoony. You know, how is it going to be overall? And it was really well animated. Like there's a lot of the characters and the figures in each scene are relatively small. I feel like, or you know, like they're not super large in a lot of these scenes, or close up or anything. And so um, the animation though was actually pretty pretty full. Like there's a lot going with that. So that surprised me actually that it really made it like a full almost film like quality for a animated game. Um, and I like that. I like the style.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the color palette and also the animation as
Hmm.
well. I was trying to figure out how I would describe this to somebody who hasn't seen the game yet, and the one thing that kind of felt parallel to me was the animation in the movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Something about
Oh
the way
yeah.
they move just kind of reminds me of
Hmm.
that. A different color palette, a
Hmm.
little brighter, a more saturated color palette, but just something about how they almost move like little paper puppets on joints, where their entire uh,
Hmm.
uh, it's very unique.
Yeah.
It is very unique and fun, um,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed it a lot. I think this is one of the highlights of the game is the presentation,
Hmm.
and we have a little video of it playing while we're recording, and it's just the candlelight, the way that it's playing off the walls. It's a very immersive in its
Yeah.
strange quirkiness.
Yeah. 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 It weirdly fit the not time period's maybe not quite the right thing, but like what it is, like there's a quality to it that is like, yeah, there's somehow this does fit the culture and the time period in a way. Like it's nothing there's nothing from back then that is like this art style wise, but it yeah, I if it were a more polished cartoon kind of look, I,
Mhm.
I don't think that would have been as great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would have been a little less charming. Its
Yeah.
unique qualities
Like
gives it
very
a
straight
ton of
lines,
charm.
very yeah, round stuff. Like, yeah, not as much. Yeah.
I was also really
Yeah.
pleasantly
Charming.
surprised by the music in the game. It's
Hmm.
not like pulling you out of the experience. It is really adding to rather than standing alone. Like some amazing soundtracks are really doing their own thing, and this is creating a lot of ambiance and setting. Uh, Table setting for this game, but I
Hmm.
just really enjoyed having the music on and hearing it and just vibing a little bit.
Yeah. No, I would agree. Like it's I I this is one of the few games that we reviewed where I would actually have the sound on fully,
Mhm,
and not be listening to something else. Usually, I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. Yeah.
mhm. How about jumping to the gameplay? Did you enjoy
Hmm.
learning how to be a con person?
Uh, this is this is where I feel divided with myself for
Mhm,
for it. There's times that I did enjoy it, and there's times that I did not enjoy the way the
mhm,
gameplay went. And I think it's just some of the things that they would have you do were much easier to follow than other ones,
mhm,
and it would bother me how that would kind of feel like it would go back and forth. Because again, it all has to do with just the buttons on the controller. So it should be very simple, but sometimes it just was like, okay, wait, I do this one for this and I do that one for that, but you're only going to tell me once and you're going to not really like help me any other way. That's, yeah. Um, yeah, it kind of, I felt divided where I kind of got why, but I didn't necessarily like all the different button combinations you would have to do. Yeah.
Yeah, you learn a lot of different techniques. Again, you're not actually playing cards in this game, but you're learning
Mhm.
how to, um, well, place certain cards at the top of the bottom of the deck, and then how to shuffle while maintaining those cards that you've carefully placed, and how to cut the deck in just a specific way, or if somebody else is cutting the deck, how to either influence them to make the cut you want, or undo their cut subtly without noticing. So, they cut the deck and then you put it right back the way it was with a quick sleight of hand. Other times you move away from the card table and maybe take a second deck to stack a hand in it, or
Mhm.
mark the back of certain cards so you can deal out the right cards to your ally, the comp, or you can give unfavorable cards to your enemy, and that is something that felt very realistic. Like the tricks that you're pulling off aren't something that can't be done in reality. These seem like these are based on
Mhm.
real world sleight of hand and
Oh yeah.
con maneuvers to distract and actually influence the game in your favor. It might not make you win every hand, but it would give you an unfair
Mhm.
advantage. And if you kept doing that over and over again, you would win more than you lost and be able to walk away a winner. Were there any specific tricks or techniques that you had to learn that you did or didn't enjoy?
You know the I think the ones that I enjoyed. Um, I I liked the gosh, I'm trying to think of what it was called, but I only, admittedly, only got so far, of course, but
Hmm.
probably was fairly early on in it. There's one where like all the cards were laid out,
Hmm.
and you did have to like um, kind of choose and pick up and deal according to giving the favorable one to the Comte
Comte
guy. Comte.
de Saint-Germain, I believe, is
Okay.
roughly the pronunciation. I'm not an expert,
Yeah,
not
I
fluent
and
in
ironically
French.
it's like French, but but I still was a little bit like vague on how to pronounce some of it. But yeah, I liked. I actually liked that, and it was kind of challenging enough because like all the cards were scattered, and it was trying to figure. Oh, I know what it was. It was actually sort of like picking the cards back up, and you were supposed
Right.
to have it in a certain order so that when you dealt them back out, that it would go in his favor. And
Yeah,
it was
that was a
selecting certain ones, but I like that one. Yeah.
that was one of my favorite tricks as well. Yeah, so picture the end of a hand of cards where everyone's laid down their cards. There's some in the middle that have been discarded, and everything's face up. And the trick was to gather them in a specific order such that you could take a small stack of the cards you gathered and place it on the top of the deck, so that you could then deal them out in a way that would favor the comte. These are all partnered cons. So you
Hmm.
were feeding cards to the comte to allow him to win, and then you would split the profits. Um,
Hmm.
and that was kind of fun. It required a quick recognition of the cards on the table and how to collect them in the proper fashion, and then maybe there'd be one little thing with like a palming the cards and then sticking them on the top after the cut had happened, or some technique like that
Hmm.
to control the deck just a little bit more. That was one I liked too. Did you enjoy one of the ones that stood out to me that I found just a little bit finicky, a little counterintuitive at times, was how you had to pour a glass of wine and peek over the
Yes,
shoulder of the other player. And
that actually, yes, yeah.
it's
Sorry,
so
I
simple.
feel like I cut you off. Yeah,
No worries.
yeah.
It's so simple. You're pouring a glass of wine, and while you're doing it, you're looking at their hand and then using a subtle symbol or gesture of some kind to communicate the cards in their hand to the comte. and
Yeah.
it's not particularly hard, but where it got hard is the kind of golden zone between pouring too slow and pouring too fast was just so small that it
Yeah.
became very easy to make a mistake, and it didn't feel like I had a lot of control. It was surprisingly tough.
Well, yeah, because there's something amiss. I think actually in like the pouring also because there was another situation where you had to pour and they were putting a deck in your pocket,
Uh-huh.
and that one was a little bit easier. But there was one of those times that I did that he was just taking his time and putting it in. So like it was that fine line again. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like I have to wait until you put the deck in my pocket. But
Right, but you can't overfill the cup, otherwise that might give it
no,
away that that would
yeah.
draw attention to you, which is
And
not what you want.
you're not supposed to go too slow either, which is really
Mhm,
funny. Like, so yeah, I feel like something didn't, I hate to say get coded right, but there just was something that didn't quite work for that. Yeah. And it was for the wine pouring
mhm.
in general. Yeah.
It wasn't like a huge failing of the game, but it just didn't feel very good. It felt
Yeah.
um, like I didn't have as much control as I wanted over this thing where, you picture a con artist and you think of this perfect control of how things are moving, where people are paying attention, drawing attention with your right hand so you could do a trick with your left. And when you're fumbling over a bottle of wine, it doesn't feel particularly good.
No, yeah.
But
Not much with cards either, other than like it's supposed to set up what you do with cards too. But yeah.
exactly.
Mm.
Um, I would say for me, it was a fairly minor complaint, that the controls almost felt a little counterintuitive or finicky at times. But eventually you get the hang of it. And in general, I found moving slower was the smarter choice for me
Mm.
because it, there is a timer that you're kind of going against before
Hmm.
people get too suspicious of you, but it's fairly generous if you're careful.
Hmm.
Is much better than because some of the mistakes can be devastating. A simple slip sometimes could end up with somebody being very mad and they have a sword or a gun at their side and they realize you're a con person, and things can turn fatal very quickly. That this is not a game where you're
Hmm.
a superhero. You're just formerly working in a tavern now going around as a con man, and if somebody gets mad at you, things can end poorly for Eugene and the Comte very quickly.
Yeah. It's no pun intended, but it's high stakes.
It
Yeah.
is indeed. Aha, clever.
Yeah.
Um, I without spoiling this little element because I think it's a fun discovery in the game. Did you die?
I left off and I actually had to go and do something, but I got arrested.
Uh huh.
Is one thing that happened, but I didn't die.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I again played the entire game, and I did get arrested a couple times, a few times,
Okay.
which sometimes can have a bad consequence where there's just no way out, and the story ends with you dying in prison, and that's kind of sad. Other times, I think the first time is sort of like free. You have some friends that will get you out of prison the first time. If the giving you one grace mistake, but it's pretty easy to make
Okay.
mistakes in this game, and I
Yeah.
died quite a few times. But that is actually something that the game plans for. Like
Hmm.
this is supposed to be challenging. You're gonna make mistakes. I think there's like a super hard difficulty where you can, if you die, it's game over, back to start. I don't recommend playing that.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
at least not until you're really a fan of this game. Um, but in the normal difficulty, the game continues even if you die, which I thought was very interesting and created a fun little
Okay.
dynamic that was surprising and interesting and caught me off guard. So keep playing. Don't worry. You're going to make mistakes and you're probably going to die,
Yeah.
but it's okay. Have fun with it. Um, the gameplay loop is pretty simple. It's pretty much like there's about 30 card tricks to learn, and you basically learn a new trick every time. And it just you go to a new location, you learn a trick on the way. You can practice that trick quite a bit. They're pretty generous with letting you practice as much as you want, and then you arrive at the location and perform the trick roughly 3 times, and then that's a level. And then you do it again
Hmm.
about 30 times until you get to the end. Um, did you did you find that the game overstayed its welcome at all, or were you getting bored with it by the time you stopped, or just ran out of time?
Um, more kind of ran out of time. I feel like actually the variety was really good.
Hmm.
Um, I wish that you could stay. I actually wish that you could stay with some of them a little bit longer.
Hmm.
That it would. I feel like it was moving on from trick to trick
Hmm.
a little too much. At least in my gameplay, yeah. I wish that I could do a little bit more, but maybe not like and maybe like two levels almost for each. I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
The the one thing I would comment on that is, as you progress in the game, a lot of the later tricks are really elaborations of the earlier tricks. Building blocks that
Mm,
you've learned the first step, and now let's take it up a notch and do add this in there, and then let's add this other technique, and then let's remove this part. It's really a handful of tricks that get elaborated on quite a few different times in interesting ways.
okay.
So you do get to revisit them in part, but you don't do the exact same trick more than once,
Hmm.
except for there's some optional levels that you can do just to make a little extra money if you're out of money. But that actually,
So then,
uh huh.
oh, well, I was just going to ask because you got farther than me. So with them kind of adding it on, did it feel repetitive or start to feel repetitive?
So I was going to talk about that a little more in the story portion of. I found the gameplay very appealing in the first half of the game, and then the story actually started picking up in the back half of the game, and that was what
Hmm,
was more interesting to me than the gameplay. So in a
okay.
little bit of in a fashion, the gameplay overstayed its welcome just a little bit, but it was replaced by a more involved story, which probably in the part you played was pretty minor. Like there's just a little bit of story that's kind of, you get a sentence or two at each location, and that's about it. And then you move on to the next place. The story becomes more involved in the back half. And
Okay.
then the finale of the story is actually quite involved, with lots of people talking back and forth as in between you
Hmm.
learning the various tricks. Um, the one thing that I found very strange, I don't know if you quite experienced this, but this is a game where you are performing tricks and you're robbing people of their money, but there's no use for money in this game. You just collect
Other
it.
than betting, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but you only need a little bit of money because
Hmm.
it in a well played level, you need your first bet, and then you're betting their money after that.
Hmm.
Because you won the first trick, and then you bet their money, and then you win the second trick, you bet their money again, and hopefully you walk away with all three completed, and you walk away with a nice few hundred um, French dollars. I don't know what the money type in this. It's just
France.
gold in the
I
game.
think it was France. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's just represented as gold in this game. But the only thing you can do with your money, literally the only thing you could do is you can donate it to some of the comp's friends
That's
at the
right. Yeah.
wagon, where
Yeah.
there's a few people that say they will take your donation and use it to benefit poor people throughout the country. And so, that's a nice sentiment and all, but there's no in-game benefit. You don't even learn about these people you're helping or get to see them or visit them or anything. It's just,
Hmm.
hey, you got too much money on your person? Stop by the wagon and donate it. That's it.
Hmm.
And then all the way up to the end of the game, it really doesn't matter how much you donate. It's basically just a score. If you donate this much, you get like a quote unquote bad worse ending where they're less happy with you, but it's literally just a sentence or two is different. And then if you
Okay.
get the middle score, then they're happy with you. And if you get the high score, then they're really happy with you. And that's it. So
Okay.
it's just like it feels like a missed opportunity to not have some sort of uh, growth of the character as they accumulate all this wealth. Sure, donate some of it, but also have some kind of progression system or something. Um, it just felt strange. So tell me your thoughts on the story, since you experienced a little less of it, and then I'll elaborate my thoughts.
Yeah, and I liked how it kind of unraveled. I guess especially at the beginning because you don't know who the comp um, is at first, but you meet him at a tavern, um, and I think just it keeps showing there are the friends of his that you meet that are kind of um, traveling hoax people. What's the word? Con artists.
Romani?
Ca-
Oh,
what's it?
I believe they're said as Romani. But yes, they also teach you a
Okay.
number of cons and sleight of hands.
Hmm. Yeah. So I think the setup actually made for that they took some time to think through the story and the setup, and I like that a lot, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, the opening was very nice. You're just working at a tavern, you meet the Comte, and then some. Well, I guess it's early enough in the game that a con goes wrong, and somebody,
Hmm.
the tavern keeper, ends up dead, and you all end up running because you just don't want to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. So the Comte takes you on, and you begin traveling the country with him. And the story progresses quite a bit from there. Initially, it's just tiny bits of story as the Comte is dragging you around the country and making inquiries that you're just unsure about. He doesn't explain too much, but he wants to know about some scandal that happened a decade or two ago involving a number of nobility,
Mm.
and you think he's going to use this
Hmm.
information to blackmail people. But as the story progresses, it becomes much more involved, and there's betrayals and deceptions and political intrigue and machinations and some rival groups competing some of them wanting to keep this information in the shadows while others are trying to bring it to light. And it's pretty entertaining. It gets all the way to the end, and then the game actually has a number of different endings depending on the
Hmm.
final level. In the final level, you'll have the opportunity to make a decision, and based on what decision you make in that level, it doesn't matter what has happened up till that point. But based on that last decision, you'll get a few small variations on endings, happy endings for some, less happy endings for others, and I. The ending is very small, and I honestly didn't find it particularly satisfying. It was fine. It's not a big
Hmm.
game. It doesn't need to have a huge, big ending. Um, I think it's only about 7 hours to play the whole thing, give or take. Um, and
Okay.
it's 7 hours depending on how much you practice, because if you practice a ton, that's going to take time, but also you're going to fail less. So that
Right.
will mean you don't have to play the levels over and over again. Um, and the ending that I chose. I thought I would kind of take the middle of the road choice for Eugene's sake, and I ended up not being very satisfied with my ending. And then I looked all the
Hmm.
endings up at the end after I played the game. I don't recommend trying to. The endings are so small a variation from each other that there's no reason to play the game like 6 times just to
Oh,
see
okay.
all the endings. They're very
Okay.
subtle variations. Look them up on YouTube
Okay.
if you're very curious. Um, but the good ending, quote unquote, that I would have preferred required me making a choice that didn't make any sense to me. Like I can't imagine why any player would have made that choice on
Oh.
their own without just trying to experience everything. Required supporting someone that you don't have much of a relationship with.
Hmm.
So I don't think it was awful. I think the story as a whole was very good. I was just a little disappointed with the ending, but sometimes this is a game that's trying to be not too far from reality. So sometimes life is not not
Yeah.
remarkable. It just
No.
is what it is, and not
Yeah.
everyone gets a happy ending. Um, but that's how that went. Pretty solid overall. Do you have any final thoughts before we move on to rating this?
Not too much. Yeah, I think I'm at the rating point. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed this game a lot. I found the gameplay very motivating at the beginning, and then, like I said, the story really picked up in the back half, and kept me going to see what was next and what was the details of this political intrigue that we were slowly unraveling throughout the game. Um, I found the gameplay to be fairly immersive. Especially early on, I felt like I was actually doing things that made me feel cool, I was pulling off these uh, big cons on people, these very
Yeah.
fancy, elaborate cons that no one was the wiser, and that felt very good about it. About the game. And altogether, I think the game is really the perfect length. It doesn't quite overstay its welcome. It doesn't get too repetitive, and it was just well put together, very well done, and like I said, very
Hmm.
beautifully in its music and its artistic style. Do you want to give a rating, or shall
I'll let you go first.
I?
Yeah.
Okay. I I was from pretty early on. I was going to go with two thumbs up, and that stuck true all the way to the end of the game. I really
Okay.
enjoyed this. I thought it was a special game that most people would enjoy. Again, the controls occasionally get in the way a little bit, but that was a fairly minor complaint. The ending wasn't what I wanted exactly, but it felt appropriate and well suited to the story they were telling. So I don't have any hesitation to give this two thumbs up.
Okay. I I actually I was trying to figure it out amidst playing it. I was between actually a one thumb up or a two thumbs up.
Hmm.
Um, and it was recognizing it's a unique game. There's
Hmm.
never been another game that I played that's been like this. That I think just the combination of everything, the story and like using button pressing techniques to actually do certain things in the game this way. Um, like I just yeah, I don't know. I just don't see anything like this. Um, I I had trouble playing it myself. Like it wasn't one that grabbed me a lot. And so that's where I was like between the one and the two thumbs. Just um it it still didn't have like a lot to it. I think I would give it a one thumb up still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, just thinking back on it, were you ever tempted to try any of these tricks in reality? Because this is a very based in reality game. Like
Yeah.
things seem
Um
possible.
yeah, actually it made me wonder about or it made me realize like wow, there's a lot of ways to really stack decks and I again like my favorite one which we're kind of watching right now, um, to like pick them all up in a certain way, like that's not too hard to think through
Hmm.
and do. So like that makes me think of like that might be fun to try to think of stacking a deck that way, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so much of these tricks. Like if you were paying attention as another player at the table, you could notice these things quite easily. But the fact is, most people
Hmm.
probably don't, especially in hours and hours long card games. Uh, you just lose focus for a second, and all of a sudden somebody has a couple aces stacked on top of the deck, and that is going to give them
Hmm.
a very big advantage over you.
You know, I'm gonna slightly revise mine. I know I'm how I'm gonna reconcile a score overall. I think I actually would give it two thumbs up, but
Okay.
it's not from something that like I completely enjoyed
Hmm.
out of all these games that we've been reviewing. But I think just recognizing how unique it is, its art style, the story design, like it actually did a good job at like having everything float together. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Now for the follow-up question, are you interested in Card Shark 2? And if so, are you buying it full price on sale, or are you letting it go by?
So that is where I'm reconciling it. None of the above. I think this was one time thing for me. Um, yeah.
I have a hard time imagining them making a Card Shark 2,
Hmm.
just because this game does so much standalone that I don't see there being any need for a sequel. Um, and that that isn't to take away from the game at any point. Like it's a lesser game because it doesn't have sequel potential. It just is. I would be very surprised. I really enjoy the art style though, and while I don't know how interested I would be in playing the entirety of this hypothetical Card Shark 2, I think I'm going to go with Buy on Sale as my choice for this
as
one.
for a sequel?
Yeah, for a sequel. Um,
Okay.
More so because there are some aspects of this game that I'd be really excited to see where it went. I would expect a Card Shark 2 to be a very different game. Not just
Hmm.
new tricks and a new character and a new story, but because of how unique this game is, I would really think that if it did exist, it would be pretty dramatically different and interesting
I guess
from that
yeah.
regard.
I guess you could actually do a real like motion control. That might be something more advanced. Like
That
because they
would
have the
be
motion controllers. Like you actually have to physically pick up your controller in a certain way
hmm
to get the cards. I don't know, something like that. The other thought I had, this wouldn't really be a sequel, but I wouldn't. But as I was playing, I was actually thinking through this, like, what would I do to buy another one? Um, One thought came to mind of like, yeah, you can't really do an exact sequel to this, like do Card Shark 2. The one thought I had was Pool Shark. Like, could you do like a pool hustler and like do something different with the controls that way, or you know have a run on a pool table or something like that.
That could
So
make
I
sense.
don't. Yeah,
In my understanding, pool sharks are people who are just pretending not to be good at a
I
game that they
know.
are good at.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's
yeah,
quite the level of, stacking the pool sticks
yeah.
like you would stack
Hmm.
cards, but it's possible. There's certainly other avenues it could explore.
Hmm.
I'm just
Bowling
remembering
Shark.
the bowling shark, yes, or the recent cheating scandal involving the game of chess and being like, chess sharks. Um,
Stack your
this
rook.
this
It's,
studio that made this, Nereal, seems to be fairly small, so I will be very excited to see what they do next, whether or not it is Card Sharks. They did make the game Reigns, if you recall, kind of an iPhone game where you'd make decisions as rulers, and you would just kind of go from
okay.
decision to decision, swiping left and right on decisions, almost like a dating app. But
Okay.
it was pretty interesting. I played a bit of that. So we're kind of in between on this. Shall we split the point and give it a half point, or do you want to come up to the 1 point?
Mm, I think it'd probably be the half.
Half
I'm
point.
pretty. I don't think I would come up. Yeah.
Okay. So 4.5 points, very respectable score for
Hmm.
Card Shark, 4.5 out of 6. That puts it on par with Katana Zero. That was a pretty cool game. That got four
Mm,
and a half
okay.
points.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right below some of our 5 pointers that are our current leaders: Speed Dating for Ghosts and Spirit Farer.
Yeah.
Speed Dating for Goats is a great game. Honestly,
It is.
it's like $3 full price. Go and play Speed Dating for Ghosts. Also, Civ 6 is also got a 5 out of 6. That's a big game
Oh, okay.
though.
That's a yeah.
Yeah, that is not a Speed Dating for Ghosts. That is
No.
you could finish Speed Dating for Ghosts in the time it takes you to learn Civ 6. So next up, we're continuing on with our Chrono Trigger recap pods, staggering those between our main
Hmm.
episodes. So continue to stay tuned if you like hearing us try to remember this game that is going to get a little harder and a little harder
Hmm.
each time. A little spoiler is we have made some of our first mistakes, and you will hear about those in the upcoming episode of our recap pod in 2 or 3 weeks. And then after that, we are playing Moonlighter. Moonlighter is a game that is described on the Steam page as an action RPG with roguelite elements that demonstrates two sides of a coin, revealing the everyday routines of Will, an adventurous shopkeeper that secretly dreams of becoming a hero. So I think during the day you run your shop, and then at night you moonlight as an adventurer, going out and hitting the dungeons and trying to be a hero. So that'll be fun. And then actually, we know what's
Okay.
coming up after that. We're playing Tales of Iron.
Hmm.
So this will be in a couple months. Tales of Iron, which is described as an epic RPG adventure with punishingly brutal combat. Oh boy. As Redgi, heir to the throne, you must embark on a perilous quest to reclaim your kingdom, explore a deceivingly charming world, assemble a brave band of companions, and banish the merciless Frog Clan. That is indeed frogs, not people called the Frog Clan, but you are playing as rats
Actual
against
frogs.
frogs. Yes.
Okay.
So that will be a fun thing. Tails of Iron, spelling it like a rat's tail. That is coming up in a couple months, and continue to stay tuned for that. If you have
Mm-hmm.
questions or corrections for our Chrono Trigger Recap pod, you can reach out to us at twobrothersplay-a-game@gmail.com. You can reach us at Two Brothers PAG on Twitter and YouTube. Chris has done a few YouTube videos, including some gameplay from our last two games, Card Sharks and previously Tales of Vesperia. You could check those out on YouTube. And I think that's about it. Please review us on iTunes, and that would be super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have one last headline for you, Chris. I actually have learned this hasn't even hit the news yet. It's that fresh that I've learned that Epic Games has announced a new game all about how much their developers hate mountains. What do you think about that?
Well, mountains are nice.
This is life.